Hello and welcome to another episode of Guyanese Swag, Trailblazing Voices. My name is McKay. I am your host, and we bring you interviews from leaders across the diaspora who are shakers and movers in they feel getting things done, y'all. Today we have with us the founder of the Blueprint Foundation. I'm talking about Roxanne Hermanstyne. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Super excited to have this conversation. Before we get started, the first question I asked everyone is, where were you born?
I was born in Guyana, born and raised in Georgetown. My parents are from Victoria, so that's up the East Coast. But yeah, I grew up in Georgetown and Albertown, and Grop Street was the last place that I lived before moving here. But my roots are from Victoria. Like, that's where my majority of my family is from.
I love it. And how old were you when you left Guyana?
I was 11 when I left. So I got some schooling in and everything before I left.
We're the exact same age when I left. I was 11 when I left as well.
Really?
Yes. So when you left Georgetown, where did you go after that?
So after I left Georgetown, my parents migrated to New York, and then my dad felt the need to move us to Chicago because he felt like it was going to be a better situation for me with schooling and everything else to go with it. So we moved to Chicago. We lived there for pretty much my 8th grade years through high school. And then after that, I left and I went to Washington, D.C. to go to school there. And then I lived in Maryland. So I lived in the DMV area for about 5 years. And then after that, I was like, okay, I'm ready for a change. I'm always ready for a change. So then I transitioned over to New York. So I started to live in New York in my adulthood, in reverse, where everyone normally goes there first and that's where they live and then they leave. Like, no, mine was reversed. So I went there in my 20s and then got married to my husband in 2020. And then here I am. I'm in Hawaii now. So we're living in Hawaii.
Wow, you've had some pretty dynamic changes in terms of location. Moving to so many different places across the US and now ultimately making a decision to live in Hawaii. What were some of the learning curves that you had from each of those changes?
So I think my biggest learning curve was Hawaii, especially coming from New York. So when I left Chicago, Chicago was city. But then when I got to the DMV area, it was a smaller city, but still had that city feel. But then when you stepped outside of it and went to like the Silver Spring area or like Germantown and further out, you'll get that suburban feel. So that's one thing I loved about the DMV area. But then when I got to Hawaii, it was like a breathtaking like experience because it's like I went from the hustle bustle to like slowing down, like literally all the way down. Like I had to bring my meter all the way down because they're so like relaxing here. Like even to driving, like I remember my first time being like sitting at a red light. I think I was looking down on my phone for something and I was at the red light and the light turned green and I didn't know it turned green because my focus had lost at the time. And I'm like, no one honked at me? Like, what's going on? You know, in New York, I would have already got all the beats, the honks, and everything to go with it. So I was just like, what am I going into? I realized now I drive slower. I'm just more relaxed and slow paced. I'm like, life is meant to be enjoyed. Like this hustle bustle thing is it's not forever. I feel like it's a part of your chapter. So I feel like dynamic wise, like across my transitions, like some of the learning curves that I have learned is that life is so precious, like to value each moment. Like, don't feel like you always have to be on the go. Like Hawaii taught me that, like take a break and actually like intake what's coming at you, enjoy each stage that you're at, each moment that you're at, like actually get to enjoy it. Because I think like once we hit one step, we're always thinking of what the next step is. And we never really and truly enjoyed this like step that we're at. Like we never enjoyed this phase. We're like, okay, what's next? And it's like, did you enjoy the phase before that? So I think that was like my biggest learning curve is like to stop and actually enjoy each phase. Because New York, I felt like I was face to face to face to face. Like after one accomplishment, it's on to the next, on to the next, and I never really stopped and paused. So this is my first time stopping and pausing and enjoying each transition.
Have you noticed health benefits from just being able to slow down and stop and pause and just take in your surroundings opposed to being in the city and being on the go all the time?
Yes, better sleep. Now I do not play my sleep. I'm like, listen, and I have a lot going on. I hold a lot on my plate at the moment. But when my body says, Rox, you need rest, Roxy's gonna go take some rest. So I feel like I got better health benefits as far as my sleep has increased. I've actually like found time to start running. Now I run, I did a half marathon, a marathon. I go to the gym now more often than I used to in New York. Like I actually like put those things into my schedule. And even taking like the time to do like personal care, if it's like massages or therapy, whatever it is that my self needs, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna take that time to do it.
I love it. I love it. I really have a strong sense of respect for people who understand the importance of self-care, because I think of all the things we get to do in life, there's only one vehicle that we have to do all of those things, and that vehicle is our body. And understanding the fundamental of, hey, I can do all these things, but none of these things can be done without me is really important. So it's really awesome that you found that balance. Now living in Hawaii and starting the foundation, talk to us first of all, before I even go there, what is the Blueprint Foundation for those who don't know?
So the Blueprint Foundation, formerly known as Bennett Foundation, for those that probably seen that name around before, it's basically a foundation. I built that foundation to break medical and educational barriers in rural areas of Guyana. And I feel as though when I created it back in 2018 when my aunt was diagnosed with cancer and I had to bring her to the US to receive care. And I just felt like I don't feel as though everyone has that opportunity to either travel out and receive care. And I only knew how to work the system because I was in the system. So I worked at Atlantic Hill Hospital at the time when she was diagnosed with cancer. So, we brought her up on her traveler's visa and she was able to like get in and get care, get her all her chemo, surgery, everything done before going back home. Thank God she's here with us 5 years later, still doing well. And from that day, like literally she was diagnosed that year in November 2018 of that year, I was like, I'm gonna do this. So when I started it, literally, I told my mom about it. I told my dad, I told my brother, and a close friend of mine at the time. And I was like, I want to do this. And they were like, okay, well, go ahead and do it. So I found an attorney, signed up, registered the organization, did all the legality parts of it, because it wasn't something that I see myself doing short term. So I'm like, if I plan on doing this long term, I need to have the right legalities in there. So I paid to get everything done. And we did our first mission to Guyana, November of 2018 to Guyana. And the support that I received from my family and friends was tremendous. I definitely could not have done it alone. And regardless, I just knew it was something that I wanted to personally do. So I bought all the supplies. Like that was what I did for my birthday that year. I bought all the medical supplies. I bought the laptops, the desktops, everything that we wanted to take home with me. I bought it and I took it home. Friends donated, and that was it. We started it from 2018. And we're still here.
And talk to us about what the foundation is doing today and some of the projects that you guys are working on.
So one project that we recently started this year was the digital minds, like digital literacy. So we're trying to increase the digital literacy in Guyana. And we're currently working on trying to start up a new cohort. So our first cohort of students was earlier this year, January we started, and we ended like around April. So we did like a test cohort out in Linden. And we had a few students where we taught them web development and web design behind the scenes. And with that being said, after that was done, I was like, we were able to see that, hey, access to laptops are a hard thing to do, especially when you're further out. The internet is horrible. And that, classes virtually were starting to become a little stumbling block for the students because sometimes they won't have access to it. Some people didn't know the difference between the laptop and a Chromebook. Like you can't do web design on a Chromebook, you need to do it or coding on a Chromebook, you need to do it on a laptop. So it was things like that actually, I'm like, Guyana really needs a lot of advancing. So with that being said, that's one project that we're working on. We're also working on our medical mission trip coming up to Guyana this year, November of 2023. So it's November 5th through the 11th, and we're going to 3 rural areas. So it will be Linden, Kukwani, and Victoria. We're going to those 3 areas. We'll also be doing a hamper drive during that time. And because that's something that I do every November, like I'll go back and I'll give hundreds of hampers to different areas that actually need them. And I'm currently working on the fundraiser here in Hawaii. So the last fundraiser we had was in New York, actually in June. So I was in New York in June. And then now we're working on one for Hawaii to like for my friends and, you know, the people that love me are here to support me because they weren't able to attend the one in New York. So that's coming up at the end of August, August 26th. So it's the medical mission trip and the fundraiser are like the next two major hubs for us right now that we're working on.
For the people who are watching and listening to this and they're like, I love what you're doing and I want to get involved. One, how can they support you, whether it's monetary wise or if they want to contribute time, volunteer, and how can they do that? Or even the people who might want to join the trip as a missionary.
Okay, so we do have a website. It's blueprintfoundationinc.org. And once you click on the website, you pretty much can either sign up or sign up for the mission trip on there because we have the sign up information on there. And then also we have, if you want to donate, you can donate through the website. Also, we have a donate button there. So everything is accessible through our website, blueprintfoundationinc.org.
I really, really love what you guys are doing. I kind of jumped deep in there and went straight into the foundation, but I want to backlog for a second. Talk to us about Roxy as a person. First of all, how did you get involved in that? And I know you touched on that briefly, but go back to your background in the medical field and kind of what inspired you to pursue the medical field as a career path.
So I'm actually in the field of pharmacy. I started that in high school. There was a program that was introduced to me in high school that we were able to attend. It was like we had to apply and had like all these applicants and they only chose like 5 people and I was one of the 5 that were chosen. And after that, you know, I've been doing it since high school, college, throughout my adulthood. That's what I do for like my day job. And then at night, I'm working the foundation. Like I'm behind the scenes doing a lot when it comes to the foundation. So this year is the year that we actually are trying to actually get more awareness about the foundation out. So I was doing a lot of work behind the scenes, but I never posted. I never really like, hey, this is what we're doing. If you want to be a part of it, I was just like, hey, I can do this. And I don't really care about the social media standpoint of it. But then we see the world we live in, like everything is out on the, like that's how people gain access to information. So this year is the year to enhance access to the foundation, and people like to raise awareness for people to know like, hey, this is who we are and this is what we're doing. So this is something that we're working on. Like this is something that I do at night. Like I said, like literally I work my regular day job and then at night I'm all focusing on the organization and on the weekends. Also, I am a military spouse. My husband is Navy. So I decided, I don't know, I'm the person that I like to give back or give resources. So I'm currently the ombudsman, which in short terms is the liaison between the command, the Navy command and their families. So I'm like that middle person that the families will come to if they're trying to connect to the triad or the command themselves, which is their spouses' leaders. When they're on deployment, when they're away at sea, I'm the person that everyone will come to. So that's something else that I do. I also sit on the command board. I'm the junior civilian rep. So I do work for the federal sector. So I'm a GS employee. So I'm pretty much the junior civilian rep. So I represent the civilians if they have any questions because it's active duties and civilians. So if they have any questions, anything that they may not be clear about, they can come in, ask me questions, email, whatever it is. So at work, I'm doing technically 3 jobs. 1 paid, 2 volunteered, and then of course the nonprofit. So I'm technically busy a lot.
As someone who has a lot of demand on your time, first of all, how do you find what are some of your strategies for creating balance and making sure that one, you're given the right amount of time to each specific project and that you're not taking on too much or even overwhelming yourself?
Okay, so for me, it's teamwork. The foundation, I definitely cannot facilitate or do it on my own as we continue to grow on a larger scale. I do have a partner, her name is Malika Blunt. She assists me. Also, I have one of my members, he's back home, Nedry Wharton. Also have another member, Adrian, he's in New York. So I have a lot of and also our admins, Sierra and Kanisha. So I have a lot of different admin pieces that are in different places that are assisting me to be able to do things. So I may have founded it, but I'm not the only one that's putting in the work to get it where it needs to go. So I will exaggerate on teamwork. Like, teamwork is so important. I believe in having a strong team. I believe in we more than I. And clearly I'm married, so I have to believe in we more than I. And it's something that I'm fortunate enough to have a good team, because majority of the times people do get on board on you, but they don't see your vision, or they might not want to push in as much work. So teamwork is definitely one thing that helps me to balance it. Even though my brain is always running on what to do next for the organization, like, I'm grateful to have a team that can help me execute a lot of things.
Toppling back on that conversation of being now married, now as a wife and a business owner, entrepreneur, and still juggling a regular 9-to-5 job, what are some of the day-to-day things that you do to maintain that balance between family life and work life? Because sometimes the work life can take over the family life.
Yeah. So yeah, I do my regular job during the day. If I need to do something that's not, I can't do it because given the fact that I'm 6 hours behind the world, as you know, so right now it's like 6 something in the morning here, and it's like 12 something in New York. So I kind of like try to execute that style. So me and my husband, we work on the same command. So with that being said, we drive into work together. So majority of the times I'm up early in the morning, which is still early on the other side of the world. So I try to do things before work when it comes to, if I have like a deadline coming up approaching, or I have like something important that I really can't get done on a weekend, I try to use a lot of my time before work. Now, after work, I don't really do that much work unless my husband has like a 24-hour duty, he's not home, or I have something that's very, very important and it requires my attention. If not, I will literally do majority of my foundation work before work or on the weekends. And if I have downtime doing work, I'll do it then too, because sometimes I have access where I can do it.
For the people who are watching this, even for the next generation that's listening, and they're like, I really like her style, I love what she's doing, what were some of the things that you did early on, even in your teenage years, to help you prepare to become the successful person that you are now?
Education is one. My parents, my dad and my mom, they don't play with education. So education was like it was priority in the household. Like, listen, you're going to school, you have to take your education. That's the only way, like, it's a Caribbean thing, right? That's the only way you can excel in life, is if you have education behind you. So that was definitely one thing that was exaggerated. And I just want to stump on it. Like, my dad, he did not obtain a degree of any sort. But when I say he's one of the most brilliant individuals I've ever met, like, he always go back to his childhood stories, and he'll tell me, like, listen, he had to stop school early to take care of his other siblings because they were a large family, while my grandma would work in the market. And it didn't matter. Like, he wanted to learn how to read and write. So he would pick up the newspaper, and that was like his thing. He would read. Now, there's no word in the dictionary my dad does not know. Given the fact that he never went to school, like went to high school or went to college. And not only that, he was a very successful businessman back home before we migrated here. So I think watching my dad overcome that, like being able to still be educated, even though he did not go to school, was definitely a major motivation for me. And then also my mom, when she got here to the States at 40, she decided, hey, I'm going to go back to school and get my bachelor's. So she went back to school, she did her degree in culinary, and then she obtained her LPN license. So I was just like, well, if y'all can do that at those ages, what's stopping me? So I kind of had those two models in front of me, like showing me that nothing is impossible once you put your mind to it. So I feel like for anyone that's looking in, like, if you have a goal, like, set your eyes on that prize. It doesn't matter. It might not happen when you want it to happen, but when it's meant to happen, I'm a firm believer what's meant to happen at that time will happen. If it doesn't happen at that time, it was not meant to happen. I don't walk away with it thinking in a negative mindset, like, hey, I failed, or hey, I could have done this. Like, I'm just like, it just was not my time. And I will legit make peace with that and not quit, but go back at it. And you'll be surprised how less stress-free things can be if you really like put that in mind. Like, hey, sometimes the time that you think you may need something is not your time. It's not depending on what you believe in. It's not God's time. He doesn't have that ready for you yet. So just believe like, hey, when it's time for you to attract it, what's meant for you will be for you at that time. Just work towards it. Don't stop. Keep growing. That's one thing that assisted me with it. Also, I'm a firm believer of networking. I'm a social butterfly. Like, you put me in a room, I might walk in the room and not know any of those people, but best believe when I walk out the room, I'm gonna know everybody. It could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing because, you attract a lot of people. Pretty much attract, like, they come towards you based off your energy, and some energies are good, some aren't bad, some are good, some are bad, so you have to filter them out. But I think that was definitely one of my strengths. I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, so I'm always networking. I feel like it's so important in this world, and I think back then when I did start networking, the importance of networking wasn't even a thing yet. Now it's like, hey, you really need to know somebody to get into some places, because even though you may have all the credentials lined up, the fact that the extra piece that you may know that person might get you in that hump. So that's another thing that assisted me, was the networking piece. And hey, just like having a genuine heart. Like, if you really want to do something, just do it. Like, I'm not a millionaire. I don't need to be a millionaire to sit here and say, hey, I wanted to start this foundation. I just knew for a fact that I wanted to start it. So I wrote down my goals, and I started to strive toward them. And during that process, I have attracted the people that are meant to be a part of this organization to help me grow onto that path. So I feel as though that's something that we need to remember as individuals, that life is a journey. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. Some people are going to, along the part, some people are going to be in your life just for a season. But that does not say, hey, just block out the world and just think, hey, everything is just me, 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 me. Like, no, like, it's okay to be vulnerable and let some people in. Not everyone, some people in, once they've earned that trust. So that's something that I would say to the younger generation.
So many golden pieces of nuggets, and I really want to tap into all of them. But we're going to take a really quick break for a message from today's sponsor. And when we come back, I'm going to pick back up on these gems.
Okay.
Meet Kim. She recently moved to a new neighborhood and has a craving for pine tart and cheese rolls. She Googled Guyanese restaurants in her neighborhood and received recommendations for Ghanaian restaurants instead. While she was at the park walking, her dog Kim ran into Susan, a fellow Guyanese, who introduced her to the Guyanese Swag Business Directory, a comprehensive listing of reputable Guyanese-owned businesses across the diaspora. Kim now regularly visits the GuyaneseSwag.net, where she can easily find trusted and reliable Guyanese-owned businesses and stay updated on upcoming events throughout the diaspora. Since the directory offers detailed business profiles, including pictures, videos, specials, contact information, and even reviews from neighbors, Kim is able to stay connected to her roots in her new home away from home. Register your business for free by visiting GuyaneseSwag.net.
Hello and welcome back. For those of you who are just joining us, if you missed the first half of this interview, I highly encourage you to go back and listen, go back and watch. We're here today with Roxy, the founder of the Blueprint Foundation. Roxy, you dropped some really, really important nuggets before we went for a break. For those who are just joining us or just listening, you tapped on some really important things. One that I want to focus on is the art of networking. I think we live in a generation where we have so much access to so many different people at the same time, so many different types of information, that I don't think that a lot of people understand the power of networking and how to even leverage things like social media to properly network. They think it's a total sum of like likes and shares and follow. But if you're leveraging social media, even in the format of networking in the way that you're talking about it, you can make some really powerful connections and make things happen that would have taken you even longer. But because you were able to build those relationships, it helped you to accelerate. What are some tools or what are some of your techniques for networking that you feel helps you to build strong bonds and strong relationships?
Okay, so let me start the conversation by saying, I was reading a book. I can't remember exactly which book it was, but your network is your net worth, if that makes sense, right? And with that being said, I keep that at the back of my mind, because who's in my circle, right? Or whom I've networked with, it's literally my net worth. So the relationships that I've built throughout my years, even in adulthood, like my early 20s onto now, I feel as though those relationships, I fostered them. So with that being said, for me, and something you said that was very interesting, like leveraging, having all these likes and follows, people think like that's their network. Like, but in reality, like how many people behind the scene can you really pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I have something going on, like, would you support me? Or how many people like have you really maintained that connection with? So you can go on my social media page. I do not have 1,000,001 followers, but behind the scenes, if I really need to pick up the phone and say, hey, I have this person that I know that can help you do this, I have access to that, right? I'm still trying to catch up on building all the million of followers that people have that I guess they think it's a major hub. But I'm not saying that it's not something that's positive. But what I'm saying is that in order for you to grow as an individual, I feel like once you do that self work, because for me, I was networking from a very early age, right? But as I got older, especially when I got to Hawaii, I did a lot of internal self work, and I attracted a different type of tribe while here in Hawaii. So I feel like now I'm a firm believer, like, hey, I'll attract who's meant to be in my life. My tribe will find me. Like, that's literally like, that's my testimony for living here in Hawaii. I felt like my tribe found me, like I attracted, and I continue to attract the people that needs to be in my life with me just minding my business, like literally not doing anything extra, just being Roxy. You know what I'm saying? I pray about it. I pray about it all the time. I'm like, God, please, please land people in my life that needs to be there, that mean good, that are not, have like a negative agenda behind the scenes. So with that being said, with the networking part, I feel like just be yourself. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. If you try to be somebody else, you will attract the wrong people. But if you just be yourself, the right people will come towards you and they will attract towards you. And those are the people that you want in your circle. So don't try to impersonate somebody else, because that's not going to attract the people that you need in your life. So I think my biggest golden nugget to it is literally be yourself. Now, if you know you got some ways you need to change, that's a different story. That's negative, that's harming to you. That's a different story. But outside of that, like, who are you? Like, who's key? Like, be key. Like, don't try to be somebody else.
Oh my God, so many different nuggets. Okay, let's talk about working on self, because I feel like that word gets thrown around so much, especially with TikTok. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm me and I'm working, right? And it's like people think self-care is just going to the spa and sitting there and getting your nails done or something like that. But it's like an internal thing that you have to work on your person, your being to be a better person. It's not necessarily, I mean, yes, all the things, the spa days and the beach and all that stuff, that's the physical self-care, that's the external stuff. But the internal stuff is really what makes a difference. What are some of the internal things that you've done and continue to do to help you become the person you are today?
So I'm an avid reader, so I love to read. I read some of everything. If it's not self-empowerment books, I'm always reading memoirs. Like, I'm a firm believer of reading. I'm always reading, trying to grow my intellectual. So that's one thing that I would say that's very important, because there's so much knowledge out there to be shared, and you'll be surprised if you pick up a book or even listen to an audiobook, the things that you can learn, right? That's one thing I would say. Secondly, I take my time out to pray. That's the way I start my day. Meditate, pray. Like, I feel like that has allowed me to really center myself. And when I'm confused about something, I always pray. I'm like, God, just show me what I need to see, or show me what is it that I'm missing, or guide my heart into the place that I need to be. So that's something that those are the two things that I've started doing, like avidly reading, also meditating, praying. Like, those are like the two like major factors that I say that, hey, it's really helped me to come on a better journey as an individual from where I was to where I am now. And I still have more growth to do. And then also my circle. My circle has changed tremendously. When I say tremendously, like when I got to Hawaii, like all my sister tribe, they're like in their 50s and up. I'm the baby in the group, right? So clearly I'm surrounded by these women that have been through life already, but I feel like I have so much to learn. While being here in Hawaii, I gained a mentor at the Navy, and she was active duty. Well, she was an officer, and she recently retired after serving for 30 years. And she has poured so much into me and has taught me so much. I feel like that has allowed me to even change more as an individual, because I feel like the people that we surround ourselves with, if you can't take or even learn from them, like, what's the purpose, right? Like, yeah, some people think that when you have a tribe or you have a sisterhood, it's all about going out to the happy hours and toasting and cheers. But it's like when you got those projects coming up or something that you may need prayers on, or hey, you may have had a surgery, you needed that support. Like, where are those people? So I feel like the circle or the people that you surround yourself with is another part of your like self journey, because the influence from the outside can actually affect you on the inside. So those are the three things that I would like say. Of course, there's more, but those are the three that I would literally take.
You have talked extensively about your network and your tribe and your circle and the people that we surround ourselves with. Dig a little bit deeper into that for me, because you said something very important, that sometimes people think that your tribe is the people that you go to happy hour with, and in the end, when life really happens, the happy hour people are not happy at all because they're not supporting you.
They're not supporting.
How did you, first of all, at what point did you realize that the tribe you had before was maybe toxic or maybe just not the right tribe because they're not getting you where you want to go? And when you made that shift to Hawaii, how did you determine, like, hey, in the past, these were the people that I attracted? Oh my God, sorry, another question just came. So in the past, these were the people I attracted, but I no longer want to be attracted to those people anymore. And making that realization that I need to work on myself, because really that's the place where it starts. And we talked about that a little bit, but realizing that need to work on self, because sometimes people will look at the tribe and blame the tribe, not realizing that you are literally a mirror attracting the things that are reflecting back to you. And so, one, how did you know or come to grips with, I need to work on me so that I can stop attracting these type of people? And once you made that realization that I need to work on me, you identified the things that you needed to work on. What were some of the things that you did to help you realize, okay, these are the type of people that I now want to be attracted to?
So I never had to disconnect. And I think this didn't hit or like hit home until like literally my 30s. I never had to disconnect from the people that were not meant to be in my circle. It's weird. Strange things would happen. Like, they'll either stop talking to me and I would never get a reason why. I would never get an explanation. And as much as I'm that friend, I will reach out like, hey, like, is everything okay? Like, what's going on? Like, do you want to talk about it? Like, you're acting kind of distant. Like, what's going on? What did I do? For some reason, it's either they don't respond or they'll act as though everything is okay. And then the next thing I know, they've dropped out of my life. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know what that was about, but I'm thinking God is protecting me from something that I'm not seeing. So, and that's not to say I've had a lot of people dropped out of my life, because I've had some relationships that I've had friends from since I was like 5 back home that I'm still friends with to this day, 25 plus years later. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I think that the people that are not meant to be in your life, like, if you pray about it, for some reason, they kind of like just fall by the wayside. And not saying that as a friend, you would forget about it, because of course, as a friend, it will hurt, because, we do have like those friendship breakups. But I think once you come to realization, like, hey, I can't force it. Maybe that season of that friendship is over. Things become a little bit less stressful for you on that end. So that's the part for that. Now, as far as me realizing the type of people that I wanted to attract, I honestly did not learn that part until I got here. When I got here and I attracted my mentor at work, and then she literally became a big sister to me. Like, when I say pours into me, she pours into me. It's like probably one of the few relationships I've met in such a short term, because we've only known each other for the time I've been on the island, right? Whereas she'll show up and show out. And she would put me in rooms that I don't even think I should be in, but because that's another social butterfly, introvert, but social butterfly, because she knows somebody, right? And I feel like she would put me in rooms that I had no idea I needed to be in, connect me into people that have either poured back into me also and just like pushed me to another level. So after I attracted her, and, I've watched the way that she has acted with her tribe and her friends around her, I'm like, that's something that I want to have, or something that I want to do. It's a trait that I would like to incorporate into my life. So we're big on celebrating each other, whether it's birthdays, celebrations, milestones, graduating, it does not matter. Supporting, like once you said it in a group, like you want to do this, best believe all 10 of us or 9 of us were showing up, right? And I just feel as though that was something like she like taught me like how like friendships or sisterhoods should be. And that was like my shift of, hey, you need to continue to be the person that you are, but it's okay to like incorporate some of these things that I've learned. And when I had surgery last September, like that was something else. Like they came together along with my husband, because my husband took time off to take care of me. And they legit were like hounding his phone every day, right? They're hounding him every day. Like, how's Roxy doing? They took turns coming through to check in on me, dropping things off that I needed. And I was just grateful for that. Like, I feel like it doesn't matter. It can be something as minor or something as big. Like, once we all needed each other, we knew how to lean in. And even if someone left, like I had a girlfriend, she left to go home for a family emergency, and she was still checking in on me from a part of the crew. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like after experiencing that, I don't want a bond of anything less. Like, I don't want a relationship of anything less. It's like, I literally changed the tier level of friendships that I want, or the people that I want to attract. If it's not given that, then you can stay over there. I'm fine. I don't need the extraness, you know? So I think that's something that Hawaii taught me. Like, that's my time here has taught me how to pretty much like take it in all, but also take it in as a lesson and learn.
Oh my God, what a lesson on healthy friendships and healthy relationships. Um, Especially in a female circle, because I feel like sometimes in female circles, it's this sense of competitiveness where it's like constantly competing with each other, but then to be in an environment where it's like, no, we're supportive, we're helping, we're building, and we're growing together, and having that mentor that took you under her wings and poured into you. For the young person, or even the grown person that's watching this, who has never experienced that type of love, that type of connection, that type of bond, or even mentorship, what are some things that they should, one, be doing with themselves, and two, what are some places that they should be, or circles that they should be networking in to be able to attract those type of healthy relationships?
So we live, like you said, we live in a world where everything is social media, right? So for me, like, I would say one thing that you definitely continue to work on yourself. So there are books out there about building healthy relationships. If you don't have someone to talk to that can actually teach you that, like there's things like that. Like you can read books. You can continue to pray. Like I said, depending on what you believe in, continue to pray. And just continue to sit down and do that daily self-work. And then also journaling. I feel like journaling has allowed me to really look back to see the amount of growth that I've done over the years. And journaling is something that I feel like everyone should do. Like, so that way you can look back to see like, hey, like 10 years ago, I was here. Cause sometimes I have some reflective moments and I'm like, whoo, 10 years ago, that Roxy, whoo, whoo, whoo. Instead of bad Roxy, but it's just like, oh my God, like coming from that Roxy to this Roxy, like it's a big growth, right? So I feel like reading is one thing. Finding your spirituality, like literally sitting down and finding your center. Like you have to be in a calm space of mind to find your center, right? And also the mentorship part, I didn't go looking for a mentor, if that makes sense. Like I said, when I got here, it was just me and my husband, and I was just like, hey, I left New York where all my family and friends are. I knew some of everybody, and I'm in this place and I knew no one. And then my husband looked at me, he was like, I'll give you about 6 months. I looked at him, I'm like, because it was in the midst of COVID. My boy, I ain't gonna know nobody. And then he's like, you must not know yourself. Like literally, that's how he said it to me, right? And one day at work, like, I don't know, me and her, our eyes connected, because she always used to come to the pharmacy, but our eyes connected before, we kind of like smiled at each other. And it was like a good energy. And then she sent out an email because she was sitting on she was a captain in the Navy. So she had a very high position. Sent out an email and she spoke about delegating. And that was something that I learned from her, because I was that person that wanted to take on everything. Give it all to me, Roxy can do it. And she sent out an email about delegating. And I was just like, delegating. And I dived into delegating, literally dived into the topic. And then I emailed her like, hey, ma'am, I literally just stepped out on faith. Hey, ma'am, your email like really spoke to me, and I wanted to know, is there a way that you can mentor me? And she was like, hey, thanks for reaching out. Send me your resume. And I sent her my resume, and then we had our first meeting, and then the rest was history. So I felt like God knew I needed that. But if I didn't make this move to Hawaii, so if I didn't step out on this leap and say, hey, like, it's okay for me to move here, even if I don't know anyone, I never would have met her or the people that she's connected me to, right? And I feel like you got to be able to take that leap of faith, even during your self journey. Like sometimes your mind may tell you, hey, you need to make a change on this. And it may be a very big, drastic change, like me moving all the way across the world. But you have to be like, hey, self, I can do this. No matter where you place me, I can do this. Like, it's okay. So I think believing in that leap or taking that leap of faith is like very important and crucial to a part of your self-growth.
Listen, I don't want to stop picking your brain, but I obviously want to be respectful of your time. To bring the conversation full circle, I want to bring it parallel to two things that have been consistent throughout your conversation. And I think this conversation would not be meaningful without it. Faith in God. Talk to us about what it means to you to have a relationship with God and how that faith in a higher being, faith in God, transcends in your day-to-day life, because you've talked about that extensively, even just your move to Hawaii, taking a leap of faith and reaching out and saying, hey, can you be my mentor? Like all those different action steps that you take, they're faith steps. So talk to us about both of those aspects of your life.
Oh yeah. So growing up, Christianity was very important in my household. So my mom, you gotta know that Bible inside out. Like that's what was taught for me from the beginning, right? So, but as you become older and life starts to happen, or life starts to lifing, things start to get more harder. You just seen all these obstacles being thrown at you, and you're like, whoa, hold up, this is what adulthood is? It's very ghetto over here. I don't want to be here anymore. With that being said, I feel like God, each day or each month, each year, my relationship with God has grown more and more and more and more. And for me, when I'm confused, when I'm lost, I always pray. I get down on my knees and I will pray. And once I say that prayer, I close it and I leave it up to God. And I try not to think about it. And I'm like, hey, what's meant to happen is going to happen. It's going to happen at its right time. It's going to surface out the way it's supposed to surface out. And at least behold, that's what's been happening. So I'm testimonial wise, where I was 10 years ago to where I am now, like none of that would have been without the grace of God. Like he's moved mountains for me, put me in places, like I said, that I don't believe I should have personally been in, but he has placed me there. Removed people from my life, added people to my life. People that I thought I needed were not the people that I needed. And for some reason, like I said, those relationships like literally just decree and went away. Like it was like they just disappeared. And the ones that I did need, they came out of nowhere. It was like just dropped into my life, right? Through one person that was sent to my life. And I feel like if you believe in him and you believe in him that he will do it, and you have that mustard seed of faith that's always needed, you'll be surprised on how much things you can conquer as an individual. Because oftentimes what we'll do is we'll pray about something, and then the next day we're looking for the change. But the change might not come until 10 years later. It might not come until 5 years later. Who knows when it's going to come? But I do know when it does come, it comes at the right time. And that's my personal testimony. Like the things that I wanted back, because I've always seen myself being married at, perfect example, married at 25 with a house with a white picket fence. No, at 25, I was not married and I was not doing any of that. When I got married, the year that I got married, it was like, this was meant to be. Like, this is how it was supposed to be. Because I got married to my high school sweetheart. So God resurfaced him into my life, as far as like, we never lost connection, but we weren't together. And he was in Japan at the time. So when we got back together, it was him coming from Japan to Hawaii and me coming from New York. And when I announced that I was married, because we did an elopement, no one believed it because I went from being single to, hey, you're married now. You know what I'm saying? But if I were to be married years ago, as a person and the growth that I've seen myself done, I don't think I would have been ready. So I'm happy that I never like forced it and pushed it. I'm to the point or to that age where I just pray about things and I let it go. I pray about it and I let it go. That's the only way I can keep my peace of mind. Because if not, I will lose my nuggets. If I'm trying to keep track of everything that I've prayed and asked for, and hey, God, I prayed about this yesterday and it's 2 weeks later. Why hasn't it come yet? You know what I'm saying? So that's something that I feel like the biggest takeaway is that everything happens at the right time. At the right time, trust me.
What a perfect way to end this conversation. I could not have put that or said that better myself. Roxy, for those who have listened to this interview, they've watched it, and they're like, man, I really love her vibe. I really love what she's doing. I want to get involved. Share the information again. How can they connect with you? How can they support the Blueprint Foundation, and how they can join the mission trips?
Okay, so if you're a Facebook person, I'm on there as Roxanne Johnson. And the foundation is on there as the Blueprint Foundation Incorporated with our yellow and green logo. If you're on Instagram, the Instagram is also the Blueprint Foundation. And my Instagram is like TheeRoxyJ, the Roxy J. That's how I'm found on Instagram. And also for the website, it's blueprintfoundationinc.org. And there you can sign up for our upcoming medical mission trip. And also, if you wanted to donate or give back, you have the opportunity to do that there also. If you happen to have medical supplies or even anything, computers, desktop, laptops that are still usable and you wanted to donate, you can send us an inquiry at any one of those sites that I've listed before, and we can actually just, arrange a pickup, because I still have, like I said, members in New York that are willing to pick up and ship them home before we get home in November.
I love what you guys are doing, Roxy, and this conversation was very meaningful. Thank you for stopping by and sharing your time with us. For those of you who are listening, you're watching, go ahead and click the links in the description to connect with Roxy, support what she's doing. Please join the mission trips. And as she said, if you guys have supplies that you want to donate, please do that as well. And then for those of you who have not already done so, please go ahead and hit the likes on the video, share the video, and drop us a comment. Let us know how Roxy inspired you. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. Go out and be phenomenal.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell.